Well, hello and welcome to Hotelcast TV, Asksuite's webinar series. In case you don't know Asksuite yet, Asksuite is the world leader conversational booking solutions for hotels, chains, and resorts. We developed an omni-channel communication platform that unifies all chats in one. That's pretty awesome. Asksuite is also the 2020, 2021, and 2022 best hotel chatbot in the world by Hotel Tech Awards. And finally, Hotelcast, our podcast, was named the second best hospitality podcast by International Hospitality Institute. It always makes me smile when I read that, so I'm always happy to say that. If you want to know more about us, I invite you to follow Ask Suite on LinkedIn, where you can find upcoming webinars, events, podcasts, and a lot of good content about the hotel industry and how to boost sales and reservations, performance, and much more. I guarantee you won't regret it. So if you don't follow us, do it now. Today's webinar is technology at your service, or better yet, how technology can serve you, hotelier that is watching us. So who is watching us right now? So people are starting to join us. I want to say hello again. So hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Paula. I'm the content coordinator at Asksuite and the host of this live show, as you already noticed. Please let us know where you're watching the show. Write your comments and questions to your guests in the chat. Take this opportunity to be very interactive. Don't be shy. Hi, Hannah. Hello. As you can see with me, I already have our three special guests of today's show. So let me just say hello to them really quickly and let them introduce themselves to you, the audience. So first, I would like to say hello to Fiona Gillen, VP of Marketing at the Hotels Network. So hello, Fiona. Welcome to the show. Very nice to have you here. And can you please introduce yourself and the Hotels Network very briefly to our audience?
Sure, Paula, thank you so much for the invitation. Very happy to be here. So my name is as Fiona. I head up marketing at the Hotels Network. And for those of you who don't know us, we're helping thousands of hotels all around the world to grow their direct channel. And this is really by focusing on the user journey and helping to convert guests throughout that user journey. And obviously, we do this by developing technology that helps make life easier for hoteliers, and above all, that boosts their results and their revenue. So I started my career in marketing 25 years ago, showing my age, and technology was very different than it is today. And so I joined technology startups back in 2007, and it's been a pretty fascinating journey ever since, seeing how it's all been evolving. And so I'm very excited to be here today to join this discussion around technology.
Oh, thank you so much, Fiona. We are very excited to have you. And next, I want to say hello to Chris Crowley, Chief Revenue Officer at Duetto. Hi, Chris. Nice to have you here today as well. So welcome to the show. And please, what can you tell us about yourself and about Duetto?
Hello, Paula. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and the chance to be on the show. I'm Chris Crowley. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for the world's #1 voted revenue management application from HTR, Duetto. We are a 3-application product with a leading tool in pricing optimization, revenue management, data management, and of course groups. But much more than that, we are believers in a different way of working in the market. Our customers will know that we look at things very differently from our competition. We like to give the power to our hoteliers to control their revenue and control their businesses. I have a background in hotels, TMC, technology and consultancy, and I've been with Duetto now for a couple of years. And it's a really exciting time to be in hotel technology, as Fiona and David will attest.
Thank you so much, Chris. It is so nice to have you too here with us. And last but not least, we have here David Byrne, my colleague, VP of Sales and Partnerships at Asksuite. So welcome, David. Another day, another webinar together. We are very happy to have you here today. So thank you for having the time to join us. And can you please also briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. So I'm David. I'm based in, for once, sunny Ireland, because it's sunny here at the moment. It's brief, but we'll take it. So yeah, I'm head of sales here for the EMEA region for Asksuite. I'm coming up nearly on a year very soon with the company, so it's been a real roller coaster. And yeah, these conversations are great to keep having. Today we're talking about technology, and that's the game that we're all in. And I had the pleasure to meet Chris and his team at Duetto at a similar in-person event, and Fiona and her team on a recent visit to Barcelona. So really, really excited to see what Chris and Fiona have to say today, for sure.
Thank you so much, David. Well, and I'm very happy to be the host of this panel because I'm sure I will learn a lot from the guests, and hopefully you who are watching us today too will also learn at least one thing or two about hotel technology. So hello again to everybody that is joining us. Hi, Deborah from UK. Okay, so let's get this started. Just a friendly reminder, you can ask your questions during our panel. We actually encourage you to do so. Just write on the chat box that you can see, and we will take the questions and answer you the best way we can. So yeah, so let's get this started. So let's start talking about the relationship between hoteliers and technology. So when I started hotel tech company, Asksuite, was about 4 years ago. There was a lot of discussion regarding the hotel industry being too traditional and not really embracing technology. And there were a lot of discussions regarding this, if technology also would, I don't know, steal jobs from hoteliers. So the relationship was not the best, let's say, back then. I think a lot has happened during these 4 years, especially after the pandemic. So I would love to hear the experts here who work in hotel techs and talk to hoteliers every day, what is their opinion about this relationship between hoteliers and technology. Are we friends now, or hoteliers still have like a suspicious mind about technology? And I would love to start with you, Fiona. What are your thoughts about this relationship?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree with you. It's definitely evolving and evolving in a positive way. We work with hotels all over the world, and what we've seen is that it really depends a lot by market. So the situation maybe in Peru, where they're maybe not quite so tech savvy, is very different than the markets such as Sweden, where it's very developed and they're very used to working with technology already. We also see a difference between maybe groups and independent hotels, which is not surprising. The groups have more resources. They've got more budget. They've got more people dedicated to technology, and so they quite often know more than whenever we speak to independent properties. I actually saw an interesting discussion recently on LinkedIn. It was shared by Josiah Mackenzie, who I used to work with in a previous role. And he was at the NYU Hospitality Conference at the start of the month. And what he was seeing was that people were saying they loved technology, the hoteliers wanted more of it. So at one of the panel discussions, he managed to get a question asked, and he was saying, okay, so what's holding you back? And on that panel were some of the biggest hotel brands in the world. And he shared some of the findings and some of the answers they gave. So I thought I would share that today. So when I look at my notes here, he was saying, so Wyndham's CEO replied, "We're not holding back at all. Our chief information officer gets more capital than anyone else in our company." And Hilton CFO said something different. He was saying he believes that technology adoption has been held back in hospitality, but it's not because of budget limitation. He says it's all about tech debt and change management, and that transitioning from legacy technology is very difficult. So I think this highlights a good point, and it's sort of that balance. Maybe the bigger brands have more resources and everything, but then it's probably more complicated for them to change or to technology, or to adapt and to adopt new technology. And maybe, the smaller brands, often we see sometimes the smaller brands that we work with can be much more agile. And then I think some of the innovative hoteliers and who are the early adopters and trying out every new innovation we launch, and tend to be the smaller brands because it's much easier for them. But I think in both cases, it's all about sort of finding the right provider. It has to be a partnership, someone who understands the needs of the hotel brand, and they're not just going to sell you a platform, but it's more of this ongoing partnership and working together so that they get the most out of the technology, and definitely not just off the shelf sold and that's it. It's really a long-term partnership. So that's how I see it.
Oh, well, I love your comment and about the event that you've been. Thank you for sharing with us. You start saying about something about the different of markets, like different markets would maybe adopt and adapt differently. And that remind me, Fiona, one of the first podcasts that I've done was like around 2 years ago, and it was with Pablo Torres, who is a very
Yes.
known revenue consultant, and he he specialized with revenue and all that. So I was talking to him, and it really surprised me because I'm from South America, so I had this idea that Europe would be so much more developed in terms of technology back then. I'm talking about 2 years ago, and then he said, "No, Paula, here like I think was like 4% only of the hotels use revenue management systems." Which it's one of the most popular ones because it's impossible I think it is impossible to process data and everything that's related to revenue. So that impressed me because it's even though I did have this notion, or at least this idea, that I think it does have some differences, don't get me wrong, but I was surprised that even like the most developed countries, they were still struggling. Yeah,
totally. I think what's one of the things is good. I think in the hotel tech industry has developed a lot, and there's so many providers out there who are specialized in the hotel industry, and I think this helps to reassure the hotelier, so they're speaking to people rather than taking a more generic technology that can be used on e-commerce, can be used in retail or anything like this. I think the fact that there's more and more hospitality specific technology providers around, that helps to offer reassurance, because they understand the challenges that hotels are facing, and when they speak to each other, they're speaking the same language. So I think that helps to reduce that suspiciousness and helps them to make them feel more comfortable speaking to the tech providers.
Just when I read here, comment Gillen is talking about what you just said, Fiona. So change within brands and large corporations faces more logistical hurdles than independent hotels. That's what you were mentioning before.
No, definitely.
Hello, Dylan, and thank you for your comment. I'm gonna give the word now to David. So, David, what are your opinion about this relationship? Complicated, maybe.
Exactly 5 years ago, I remember sitting in an RMS workshop here in Dublin, Chris, and it was a room full of local hotels, and RMS was the subject matter. And I remember being so surprised by the fear in the room from the hotel's perspective that possibly this product might take over my role and all of this kind of stuff, and this real fear of adoption of such a powerful tool. And it is amazing how fast we've come on in the last 5 years, that now, from your perspective, those products, there's, it seems to be part of the thought process around increasing your tech stack and stuff. And we have evolved. I think the friendship between the two areas is getting better and closer. I think Fiona touched on a really good point there based on just experience in the last few months, and that's about territory. So I was lucky enough to visit the Arabian travel market, and the response we got as a company to at least try and educate the hotels on what was on offer was really, really warm and welcoming. Very, very different from this side. So I think there's a huge territory thing there, that's for sure. But in general, I think we're caught in a kind of a strange cycle at the moment, because we do have the staff global issue. We do have the strain on hotels to take the time out to educate themselves on what's available. And there's a lot of our companies doing this. There's a lot of tech companies doing this, but the likes of ourselves, the Hotels Network, Duetto, we're pulling together to do webinars like this to talk about this. And if we're notifying correctly across social media, sitting down and talking and trashing it out, at least it's just sowing that seed to take a look at these. And you've got education, adoption, and integration, the three words when looking at the tech stack. But it's nearly how do we convince a hotel to take a step out of crazy period that we're in and take a look at what's available. And I think that's our challenge for a little while, especially now coming into the busy period. So my tip on this would just be, if the staff levels start to level out a little bit, just stand to one side for a while, have a look at what's out there, what's available, and what these products can do to try and fix some of the pain that you're in.
I think, David, I don't know if you all agree or not. You feel free to make comment. Before, like, hotel technologies were very much something nice to have, but not must have.
Exactly.
So, and I think now, because of all the problems, unfortunately, that we are facing, and all the demands too, because it's insanely, like I was talking about before, about the revenue management system and all that, like pricing and all this dynamic pricing. This is it's almost all the communication coming from all multiple channels. It is impossible for a human being to do it, everything on their own. So I think now it's becoming more a thing that must have, right? I think that's one of the change that I see, at least. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly my point. Yeah, it's just become, we're moving into a need instead of a want. So it's a good place to be. It's just making sure we're pushing the right messages out across the likes of this to educate, for sure. Sorry, Chris, I could have crossed you there, I think.
No, you didn't. I was listening to you in warm admiration, David.
Oh, I'll take that.
Before I go to Chris, he's next here with the same question. Just let me say hello, because I ask people to say hello, so I have to say hello back, of course. So hello, Idoia from Spain. Nizar, hello everyone. Hello, Nizar. And David, you mentioned you've been in Emirates or something, and someone is following, I guess, Dylan. Did David leave Dubai seeing any new tech that surprised him or that he felt was groundbreaking? Do you have any wow moments there about technology, since you mentioned that you were in the event?
To be honest, it's interesting. The technology showcase area of ATM was really, really small. What's interesting, and I suppose on the back of my point, was that most of the halls were full of hotels. They're trying to sell their product, so it was a very different approach. But yet they took the time to allow you to come onto their stand and sell your product, which is just completely bizarre to us here in Europe. I was well surprised by it. So
yeah, our team was there as well, and they said exactly the same feedback. They said everyone was so open and really interested in seeing what was innovations going on, and cool. they had exactly the same feedback that our team that was in.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. So you take lessons from that, and I think, so to answer Dylan's question, no, I didn't actually see a huge amount of tech on show, but definitely that I think they are very open to seeing what's out there globally and what's available.
Yeah, I think it's the mindset more, that it's totally different from what you guys telling us. So Chris, let me hear from you now about this relationship between hoteliers and technology. What is your opinion?
Well, a couple of comments on the really interesting remarks from Fiona and David. Although we have made a lot of strides in getting revenue management applications into hotels, it's still a fact, according to Skift, that 75% of the world's hotels do not use an automated revenue management application. They're still using Excel, or, as when I started in hotels more years ago than I care to admit, a whiteboard with some chalk to move numbers around on the wall. So I think there's still a long way to go. I think markets like Dubai are really interesting because the UAE and markets like that, they skipped a whole bunch of annoying history that we are still trying to deal with psychologically in our businesses. About 500 years of the Industrial Revolution, unions, workforces, perceptions about what service is, what should be done in the workplace, all that kind of thing. They've been able to go, and you see this in Southeast Asia as well, they've been able to go straight from one point in history to another without all the icky bits in the middle, right? So that does allow them to move much faster in some ways on technology than other marketplaces. But I would just say, as a counter to this question, I don't think that hoteliers and technology have ever not been friends. I'm going to say that. I'm a bit older than I'm happy to admit, but I can remember that in my younger days, technology came into the hotels and distribution. We would take reservations on telex, on fax, on the phone, through all kinds of different ways, and we were not proud about where we got our business. We were quite happy to take it through any technology we could. I remember early front of house tools and how quickly they were adopted. I can remember technology in restaurants and how fast that was adopted. I can remember how fast credit card charging, point of sale tools were adopted in hotels and restaurants. So I think the industry has always been open to technology. I think what's happened since the API revolution of about 5 or 6 years ago is that the amount of technology available to hotels and the speed with which it can be integrated is actually a little bit frightening, I think, to some of the properties. It's a knowledge gap. It's not a friendship gap. And I think the knowledge gap creates a perception or a suspicion around cost that isn't there. It creates a suspicion around integration, which we have to deal with. We have to get that over to people that we can integrate. And I think there are so many benefits now for the hotels, especially coming out of the pandemic. They've got a chance to really look very differently at how they do things in different ways. So if we say that in the 90s it was a distribution-led technology, which became an API-led technology in the 2000s, it's now gone into a revenue and retail technology environment where people are thinking about how they market, how they manage revenue, how they manage the retail profile of the guest, how they look at that part of their business. So I don't think they're not friends with technology. I think there's some knowledge work to do, and I think there's some integration convincing to do as well. But I think they all see the benefits of it. It's a little bit almost like there's so much of it. They need some help in understanding how to start, right? Because you can, and I don't know if you have this experience. I'm on LinkedIn. I sell on LinkedIn. I communicate on LinkedIn. I think I get close to 300 sales messages a week on LinkedIn, right? From people telling me that if I don't adopt their particular piece of Salesforce technology management or their marketing tool, my business is going to collapse in 15 minutes and the world will end, and all this kind of. So I think there's also an element of kind of fear marketing that goes on. We're quite happy at conferences to have futurists stand up and say, all of you people are idiots. Technology is really frightening. You have no idea what it's going to do, right? Buy my book, right? So that kind of thing goes on a lot as well. So I think, to David's very well made point, we have a communication responsibility, and we need to talk about how things integrate and the benefits they bring, get rid of the cost thing that's hanging around because it's not a cost issue, and get back to that focus around the guest and the benefits to the guest and the guest experience in the property, I think.
Yeah, and I mentioned, sorry, I just on Chris's point, it's so valuable. We also, as companies, have a responsibility to understand what our integrated partners product does as well, because we're now getting ourselves into conversations where the hotel, once they trust us, wants to know, well, okay, you do this, but what happens to that data next? Okay, well, I can speak about my partners, and so we need to understand. We need, as suppliers, to understand that full ecosystem also, to give as much education as we can.
Yeah, Chris, I do like your point of view of being more about a gap of knowledge than not a friendship, let's say, not a relationship. I do like that, but then I was a hotelier, so I actually experienced some of the resistance in some parts of the hotel, and it was a lot about like what happened was, first of all, even though we want of course we want things that help us do our daily jobs. I think everybody wants that, but sometimes the technology, or well, let's be specific, that technology, it's adopted by, I don't know, hotel managers. They make the decision, and the operation don't actually understand how to use it or how it can help them, so they don't see the value, so they don't really embrace the technology, and that, I think, make a lot of hoteliers resistant, and I think have also like a psychological component, that it's we tend to like to keep in the status quo that we are used to. And when you get an adopted technology, you're going to change your operations. You're going to change the way you do things. And usually, like in general speaking, most people do not like that. They think like, I know this is familiar to me. Do you see in that aspect that maybe it has changed when it comes to, especially when adopting comes from the, how you say that in English, from the top
down, yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that
Well, I think
degraded?
you're making my point for me, actually, in a certain
Okay.
kind of a way. So, because you started by saying that decisions are made remotely without educating or informing people about why the decision is made or what the benefits are, which is back to the knowledge gap. It's not a fear of the technology itself. One of the things that has characterized a lot of mobile technology and applications, in particular in the 2000s and 2010s, has been the implied adoption by user groups before decision makers have been able to get in and negotiate and make decisions about things. Right? Some of the most common technologies we use today, online booking tools, loyalty-based tools, things like this, consumer behavior has adopted these technologies before businesses have had a chance to block them or prevent them from getting into the domain of the business environment. I think hotel people have always liked technology. They've always enjoyed it. They've always worked with it. They've always found it useful and interesting to them. But I think, as you say, it's important that this goes back again to David's point, it's important that we are very conscious of our need to educate and to inform and to help with adoption, make sure the integrations are seamless. It's a bit like when you install a new satellite TV system in your home, right? Of course, you're a little bit afraid of it. It's a bit scary, isn't it? There's lots of plugs, there's leads, there's boxes, there's guys in weird uniforms charging you lots of money to install it, all things going on. But you want to do the thing that it does. You want to watch Netflix and you want to have your TV show and sports and all that kind of stuff. So it's really a question of the way we do it, rather than, I don't think there's an inbuilt fear of technology. Occasionally what you hear, and I did a seminar in Singapore last week about automation. The session was called Keep Calm, Automate Everything, right? And what we heard from some of the hoteliers there was a kind of fear of robots, like the robots are taking over. But again, I don't think that's the case either. I think this is about education and understanding what you can do and augmenting the experience of the guest and augmenting the experience of the hotelier to make them more effective, make them more efficient, give them more pleasure in their work, and make their guest service better. And that's really what we're all talking about here. Plus, make more money for the business so they get paid better wages and earn more bonuses. Simple as that, right? So I think it's an education piece. I don't feel like there's some inbuilt fear in there or negativity. I think hotels actually have always been pretty lively on technology. I think the guests sometimes are less willing to accept the technology. Maybe.
That's the hope. Another discussion, I guess. Just let me say hello here. Hello, Nisar from Toronto, Canada. It's always cool to see how global we are. I see they have some questions here. I will take it. Promise I will take the questions a bit later. So keep coming. Let's get to the next topic, and I think Chris, you already said a little bit about it, but let's go back to you. You already mentioned that nowadays you have so many options of so much technology that you get lost. So I want to hear from you and all the three of you, of course, your expert tip on what any hotelier must know before investing in the hotel tech. What are the musts?
Well, let me talk a little bit from a revenue management perspective, because it's my area of expertise, and maybe there's some more general points in there as well. I would say for most hoteliers, it's very good if they understand their own real estate. What we sometimes find is that they come into processes without having really thought through necessarily what they're trying to achieve. Are they wanting to link the rooms with the restaurant, with the offering that they have in different channels and distribution areas? So I think it's quite good if they understand their own real estate. It's quite good if they understand their own strategy and goals. What does the business want to achieve? Guest profile is quite a useful thing to be thinking about before you get into a technology integration or an implementation, especially if the technology relates to guest profile, but even more so in other areas of the business. Who have you got to integrate with? Right. Typically, most technologies need to integrate with the PMS, right? Often with the RMS as well. The channel manager is another factor in this as well. The loyalty tool is another factor. You may have a marketing tool. You may have an upgrading, upselling tool. There's a variety of different pieces that are floating around. So it's a good idea to sort of map out a little bit the stack in your mind before you get into the conversation, so you know a little bit what the Lego box, as my son calls it, looks like, right, before you get into it. And then I think it's also important to be well researched. Don't make a decision too quickly. Look at what's available to you in the market. Ask lots of questions about cost. Ask what it costs to implement something, what it costs to maintain something. How is the model based and things like that. And then think about the people that you have to deal with, and think about the relationships you have to maintain, and the working experience of your staff with that technology. I think if you take all those things together, then you'll be in a good position to make a good decision. Buying a piece of technology, in particular a PMS or an RMS, are quite chunky pieces of spend quite often for a hotel or a hotel company. So it's good to take some time, think about what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. It's very rare that there's a real burning platform situation that forces you to be over speedy, right? It's good to be, one of my colleagues say, thoughtful in how you do it.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm going to go to Fiona now. Same question goes to you. In your opinion, what are the must-know factors, hotelier?
Yeah, I think the most important one is exactly what Chris was saying, is for the hotelier to actually start about what challenge it is that they're trying to solve, because that's the basis of it. They've got to really understand what are the goals and what they're trying to do. And sort of following on from that, then it's important when they're speaking with the providers to know what sort of results can they expect. What are these platforms going to be able to do from them? What can they do? And that will help them calculate the return on investment, calculate if this makes sense for their business. Some things I've seen as well, which can be useful, which I've seen myself if I've been purchasing technology, is case studies. So case studies that are maybe perhaps relevant either to your business. So they're quite useful to help you to understand maybe how the technology is used in a daily basis, what sort of results they can expect. And I think only when you've sort of done that first basis of, does this make sense for my business, does it then make sense to go into the more technical details around, as Chris said, obviously integrations are key, but things like, how long does it take to implement? I mean, I've implemented Salesforce twice in my career, and I can tell you it's not an off-the-shelf tool. There is a lot of programming to adapt the tool to your own business needs. So you either have to work with Salesforce
consultants. Nightmare implementation, isn't it? But great tool.
I mean, it's just such a huge tool. Fabulous, so powerful, but so complex. And so you either have to work with specialist consultants that they sort of give you a list of who you can work with, or you have to have in-house staff who can do the technical programming side of things. Whenever you're looking at cost, not only do you have to consider these monthly fees per user, but quite often it's almost the same amount as actually the cost of the maintaining of the tool, and it's not only the setup and the launch, but it's ongoing configuration as your business evolves, and the tool has to evolve as well. And on the other end of the scale, you can have some really simple technology. So it's not as complex as, for example, switching provider for your PMS or something, which is totally linked into everything you do. Our technology, for example, is just on the website, so it's literally a copy and paste of a piece of script and code into your booking engine, or even through Google Tag Manager, and you're literally up and running within a couple of hours. So it obviously depends greatly on the type of technology that you're going to be implementing, and something like a Salesforce or CRM or a new PMS is obviously much more complex. The other thing is I think during the process, it's really important that you get involved. So not just speaking to the decision makers that make the decision, but also get involved, 1-2 people who are actually going to be the end user of the tool. So they get involved in those discussions with the vendors as much as possible as well, because they know how they're doing that particular task, or that how they're working today, and they really need to understand. And I think they quite often would have maybe more pertinent questions because they're the ones on a daily basis that are having to do the job. So I would definitely get the end user involved in that whole process to try and make it as relevant as possible.
Thanks, Fiona. And now, David, your turn.
Yeah, so I think topping on what Fiona and Chris have said, I think look at your strategy, look at your long-term strategy right now, and on who do you want your guests to be? Do you want them to return? Do you want to focus on direct bookings? All the stuff that we constantly talk about. And I think if you have your strategy right, delegate within the hotel which department looks after which, and and just educate. I'm going to repeat here, but just completely educate, show some leadership, get your staff trained as best as possible. Bearing in mind that if you are finding staff issues that are very heavy, look at probably the small percentage of quality staff that are coming in, educate those. They're the future of your property. Make sure they're up to speed with the technology. And what are your pain points? What are you trying to solve? Is there a product that can solve it? Is there a product that's automated so that we can cut down on the labor costs within the hotel, and then go and find out what those products are? So that's my tip.
Thanks, David. Before we go to the next topic, we already, oh my God, I just blink and it's already almost 40 minutes of the webinar. It's going fast. I have here a comment that I think it's for Chris. So from Pierre Baptiste, excuse me, my French. Hello, needless to talk about why an RMS is important nowadays. But why would one single system fit all hotels' needs when hotels still try to achieve different goals, ADR growth, total revenue, etc.? And then Chris, I think.
Well, I know Pierre Baptiste very well. So,
okay.
Hi Pierre, how are you? Pierre is thinking about the benefits of having multiple technology vendors in the same space within a large group or a chain. There's definitely something to be said for that. I think ultimately I would advise not, and the best thing you can do is implement Duetto across the entire real estate, Pierre. But no, there are some benefits from having a view of both different kinds of technology, or sometimes different technologies in the same space are better geared to different types of real estate. If you look at the hotel space, there's a wide variety of different kinds of hotel around the world. We've got the city centre properties we all know well, but there's resorts, the casinos, the lifestyle properties, the more boutique ones. And in the revenue area, there are definitely differences in how you approach revenue management in a large leisure resort than in a casino or in a big city centre hotel. So Pierre makes a good point. You need to adapt your strategies according to the kind of inventory you're going with. But what you need to do is select a really adaptable tool that works for everyone, like Duetto, Pierre.
I love how you so nicely sell your thing. That's really good, Chris. I like that. Next, we do have another comment here from Gillen. We were talking about adoption, and he's saying here, adoption isn't always instantaneous. Speaking from a brand standpoint, Mobile Key was ready for several years before the pandemic brought its adoption. And I remember we were talking, I don't know if it was Chris or Fiona, but I'm going to go to Fiona. I remember, Fiona, when I was working, that was at least 7 years ago, that I was working at a hotel. We already have like check-in, online check-in back then. But then like the hotel staff didn't know. They actually didn't know that have this like seriously, they didn't know they have this option. And the guests didn't adopt neither because they didn't know that have the option again.
But it all goes back to education. So it's even there's no, as we said, it's like a partnership. Whenever it's not just buying technology. It's in training the end user within the property how to use it. First of all, to explain why it's useful and why it's beneficial and why they should use it and what value so that they buy into it, so that it makes sense for them and they understand the value in it. And then actually give, on regular training, because there's turnover in the hotel staff. And so there has to be constant training available for them to get the best out of the tools. And then if it is, it depends if it's a forward-facing or a customer-facing tool or not. Then obviously if it's something that you want the customers to use, then that's more the marketing department to make sure that they're aware that is available, the online check-in or whatever it is. But I think from the provider's point of view, it's critical that we spend time doing trainings, webinars, best practices, sharing case studies, everything we can do so that they can actually get the best out of the hotel and the technology and increase adoption.
Great. So Pierre is saying thank you, Chris. So yeah.
No, can I add to Fiona's
Sure,
point?
of course.
I really like that point. That if you think about QR codes, we've had QR codes for 15 years, right?
Mm.
But no one used them.
It took a pandemic to make them, as widely used and adopted as they are now. And we probably won't come back from that position anymore. We'll still keep using them and adapting them and things like that. So it's also sometimes circumstance drives adoption.
But the technology also improved, because I remember the first QR codes, you had to download an app to be able to get the QR code to work, whereas today you just scan, you press it, and it opens up in your camera.
And that kind of Karate Kid thing with your phone, where you're like,
So it's a combination of a change in the industry, and then also the technology. They got the technology better.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, because we're like the final stretch of this webinar. We still have time if you have questions, so please keep writing them on the chat box. I was gonna say chat bot. Sorry. The chat there. Okay, I'm gonna go to David now. So we already mentioned a few areas that can benefit from tech, but let's be more specific here, David. So in your opinion, what are the areas that can benefit from technologies and how?
So this is an obvious one for me. So I'm going to stay with our own product, our fabulous AI digital assistant. And yeah, look, it's a great question. I always, when I'm talking to properties and hotels, I always ask them to just put themselves in the shoes of the guest, and where does the journey start on your decision making? And it starts with that initial communication with the hotel. And that's why we work here at Asksuite, because it's the product. And in fairness, a big shout to our developers that we just released our email integration last week, because we've looked at the pain points of the property. We've looked at the communication multi-channels that a lot of them have, and we've centralized everything into this omni-channel platform. And the reason is because the pain is real. The staff issues, which we've mentioned, are very, very real. And we have a piece of technology that enables all of those communication channels to be completely centralized, speeds up the process. But the more important thing is you, as the potential guest, get a satisfactory response time. And if your journey starts with a hotel with a satisfactory response time, the chances are you're going to move on and start making decisions around price, around engaging with that hotel. So it starts right there. So communication, but that initial piece needs to be looked at. And there's plenty of technology like ours available for that. So yeah, that would be my tip for the day.
Yeah, and okay, not trying to brag here, but will. Now again, when I was a hotelier and working the reservations and all that, we're talking about communication, and of course, email was and still is one of the main communication. And we did have now our newest integration. And how much time did I spend copying and pasting the same thing over and over, and even like try, and the thing is not even a copy and paste like totally 100%. It's like when it's a price quote, you have to open the PMS and you have to to write the right date and stuff. And I have to say, I admit, I made a few mistakes providing the wrong availability or price because of that. So it's in communication, I think it's really beneficial for hoteliers that it's our focus here, and of course for travelers too, because it is so annoying to repeat ourselves, right?
Right, and exactly. And just one piece of data that's on the increase, which is significant, is that we've handled, I think, 400 plus million conversations since the company was born in 2018. And now over 50% of those conversations happen after 6 p.m. So what that means is that guest behavior is changing. So like me, I'm guilty of it. We're watching Netflix in the evening now that it's automated, Chris. and we want to engage with the property via our mobile phone. So, and we're making decisions much quicker. We have no patience. So it's making sure that the communication piece is available 24/7 too.
Yeah, it's a hard challenge without technology. So I go to Chris now. You already mentioned a few of the benefits, Chris, and even though, but this is an educational webinar, so you feel free to repeat or add more. What areas can benefit from tech and how exactly?
Well, in my own area, I think the ability to process large amounts of data quickly, to run robotics and AI around forecasts and data, especially the forward-looking data as much as the historic data, gives you the ability to do things with revenue, make decisions in revenue that were just not possible a few years ago. I think the ability to model and predict is massively enhanced by technology. The ability to quickly assign tasks from a revenue and from an operations and sales perspective is massively enhanced by technology. The ability to process payment and to make payment a more virtual and hassle-free and safe environment for the hotel and the guest is hugely enhanced by technology. And I think there's a huge benefit in a controlled automation approach. We talk about this a lot, where you take the benefits of automating some things, the manual processes, but you also retain the sort of the innate service intelligence of the human piece as well, together with the automation. So I think there's a lot of benefits that we haven't even come close to yet for the hotels. Operationally, I think they can do a lot of things. I remember a few years ago there was a lot of buzz around the revolution in stock ordering in restaurants and hotels. Remember, they were all using iPads to immediately order stock and stuff like this. There's a whole Internet of Things revolution that's coming in the hotel space, I think, in the not so distant future. And I would just give as an example a piece of technology that I love personally, which is being used a lot in hotels now, is an app called What 3 Words. If you haven't ever used What 3 Words, it's a really fun piece of kit. What 3 Words allows you to assign a restaurant reservation for a guest down to a square meter and the exact table. It allows you to send a guest directly to their bedroom without having to do anything else but directly to their bedroom. So all the safety that comes with that and the benefit for that. It allows you to arrange a meeting point in a crowded lobby or a big conference or event. There are technologies like that also that will change the way the guest interacts with the property as well and augment that experience for them hugely. So I think there's a lot of things to come in lots of different areas, but a good place to start is to implement a really good world-leading revenue management application to help speed up your revenue decisions.
Yeah, and you were talking, I was remembering also one interview that I did with a revenue management consultant, and he was talking about the massive data, that it's impossible again to a human being to do it, but also the importance of having someone that is an expert on revenue to analyze the data, because what with not only revenue, but I think now it's in any sense, it's so easy to get so much data, and then I think that a lot of hotels are not, specific hotels are not using it as they could, because they get lost in and don't know. Now it's almost the other way, before they didn't have any data, and now it's like, okay, it's too much and I don't know where to focus on.
Well, there's a writer called David Mcandler, so I'd urge you to read him. He's a data visualization guy in the UK, writes a lot of really excellent data visualization books. He always talks about data being the new soil. So it's what you plant in your data that makes you effective. And that's very much the case in the area that I'm in the revenue management space. You need to apply, and we talk about this a lot. We talk about having a strategy before the forecast. What is it you want to achieve? And then drive the data to support the thing that you want to achieve. Don't become a slave to data that you don't really understand. And that's quite important as well, I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the feedback. We launched a couple of years ago a benchmarking, it was a data analytics tool. It was during the pandemic. We made it totally free, and it's still totally free for hoteliers, for them to benchmark so they normally use STR to benchmark the ADR and things like this, but there was nothing specifically for your direct channel. So we launched it so that they could compare 30 metrics, but specifically for the direct channel. So their conversion rate from their homepage to the booking engine, or disparities rate, or whatever it was. And sometimes the feedback was, there's so much, because I'm a data freak. So I was like, this is amazing. You know, I can drill down here, I can do this, I can do this. But sometimes the hoteliers were overwhelmed and they were understaffed and, you know, so busy. And then, so we worked with them and developed what we call opportunities, where this is where you use technology. The AI analyzes the data for them and automatically detects where they're underperforming, so where there's quick wins for them. So whenever they come into the tool, it pings up, okay, here's your top 5 opportunities for the day. So it's basically the computer, the machine learning analyzes the data for them, so that they don't have to do it. And if you want to go into detail, you can. But for some, especially for independent hotels, where they're trying to do 10 different tasks at once, then that can also be a solution. Choose the technology to actually analyze the data for you.
And I have to say, I downloaded that that research. I'm not lying. I'm not saying just to please you. I did. It was a really good study. And Fiona, I'm gonna go to you. I think it's the same question. You already talked about at least that part, but what areas can benefit from the technology in the hotel?
Yeah, I'll keep it short, because I think Chris and Dave have covered lots of things. I mean, it's definitely about efficiency. We've seen with staffing issues, it's definitely about efficiency, but it's also, you know, human error. The reality is, as you were saying, you know, copy and pasting, and sometimes you make mistakes. So you definitely remove that human error, which, especially in today's circumstances where people are overworked and juggling too many things at once, there's even a higher risk. But it's not only the efficiency, it's also the results themselves. It's actually what it can, not even that you can do something in a more efficient way, but actually get better results. So my area of expertise is in everything to do with conversion on the hotel's websites to drive their direct bookings, and the tools that we're doing. So not only does it make it more efficient for the hotel, because they can set their campaigns up and they run then automatically. So if somebody, for example, is searching for 2 adults, a family room with 2 adults and 2 kids, then automatically it will show a campaign that says, we've got a kids club, kids have breakfast for free, or whatever it is. But they set that campaign up once, and then for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, that personalized message will be automatically displayed. But it's not only about the efficiency, it's also the results. So the technology that's available today, our technology is driving conversion rate. So hotels are seeing 20% more conversion rate, 30% more conversion rate, and even a lot higher. And again, that's what the technology today is doing. And I do think some of the most exciting area is what Chris mentioned, and everything to do with with predictive analytics. We use predictive analytics in terms we call predictive personalization, because it's patterns that we see in the data, the algorithms that are built in the data, that the human eye couldn't see those patterns. And so it's the algorithms are able then to predict. So in our case, it's on the website, what's the probability this user is going to book or not on your hotel website. And if there's a very low possibility, there's no chance they're going to book, well, then automatically you show them a 5% discount or something that's going to encourage them to book. And on the other end of the scale, if they're very, very likely to book, well, the last thing you want to do is give them a discount and hit your ADR. And so it's the opposite. You want to show them your suite should upsell to a higher room category. And again, this is all automated using the algorithms. But the human eye couldn't ever analyze that amount of data. It's the power of big data. So yeah, I'm a big believer in the data side of things.
Thanks, Fiona. Well, we are really heading to the end of this webinar. We do have just one more quick question to our panelists, and I'm gonna start with you, Fiona. So if you could make a small comparison of what was the life of hotelier with or without technology, so they can maybe imagine themselves what the amazing things they can do with technology, and your final thoughts too about this topic, since it's the last
okay.
last topic. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's easier for me to compare if I think back my own career 25 years ago, when I was doing campaigns, being managed with an Excel. I was downloading things, I was inputting things in spreadsheets, and today I manage all my digital campaigns through HubSpot, is what I use for marketing automation. So emails, landing pages, sending, social media that's linked to my paid campaigns. Absolutely everything is automated in there. And the great thing is that everybody in the team has access to that. So everyone's on the same page. There's no risk of that not being emailed to you, or not opening that Excel. Everyone's got the same level of information. So I think that's really important as well. But I think how then applying sort of my experience to the hotels, I think it makes you feel sort of in control. And I think the same with our hoteliers, they have the control to update the communication in their website. They don't have to go through an agency and wait 3 days for the website to be updated. We saw that very much in COVID, whenever the restrictions were changing, and they need to be able to update their website on the fly. They need to be able to personalize messages for people coming from different regions, different markets, or whatever. And I think it's technology. I think how it makes people feel, I hope how it makes them feel, is that they take back control of things, and that's the feeling that I get, the strongest feeling I get from technology, and I hope the hoteliers can as well.
Thanks, Fiona. Go to you, David. Your thoughts, your final thoughts about this topic, and if you can make a picture for
I'll
us.
be really quick. I see the time to allow Chris to come in as well. And so it is a bit of repetition here, but just I think I've met quite a lot of hoteliers over the last 6 weeks, especially since we've been more physically out there with events and in-person meetings. And you can really feel that pressure and stress that they're under. And what they're trying to do is get to a place where that becomes less. So just my advice really is to just bridge that gap with at least having a look at what's available to try and cut down on the pressure that you're under right now. Staffing is staffing, and I think that's going to go on for quite a while. But have a look at what's available to make your life a little bit easier. And hopefully you can go home a little bit earlier in the day and not worry about the property until you return tomorrow. Yeah.
Thanks, David. And finally, Chris, your final thoughts here on this topic.
Yeah, I'll try and be brief because I know I waffle on a bit. But I think technology allows hotels to connect their commercial strategy together. It allows them to, and will allow them to be more empowered, right? They have control in their businesses again because they are making decisions based on data, as Fiona says, on applications that they work with, on integrations. They have a better relationship with their guest because they understand more what their guest wants, how to make their guest happy, how to support that guest with the right tools, services, pricing, products, and packages. They're more engaged as teams together because they all understand, because of the data and the technology, what they're all seeking to do for their business and for the hotel. And being empowered and being engaged and being connected allows them to be decisive and effective in what they do when they get into the marketplace. So it gives them back the ability to run their businesses again, not to rely on anecdotal or let's say implied evidence, rather than work with real data and real tools and services for the benefits of their guests and for their staff and for their business.
Thank you so much, Chris. Well, I think that's it for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this live show. And I want to thank again my guests, starting with Fiona. Thank you so much, Fiona, for being here today. And before I say goodbye, how can people get in touch with you or with the Hotels Network? What is the best way?
If you just look for me on LinkedIn, Fiona Gillen, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to connect with you. Any questions you have, let me know. Or our website, of course, thehotelsnetwork.com.
Thanks again, Fiona, and thank you, Chris, for being here today as well. And same goes to you. How can our audience reach out to you? You already mentioned LinkedIn, and maybe Duetto go direct.
LinkedIn, phone, carrier pigeon, whatever makes you happy. Yeah, or just speak to my agent. So yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And finally, thank you so much, David, for being our guest today. And how can people reach out to you as well?
LinkedIn, it's a popular name here in Ireland, so just keep scrolling through those David Byrnes until this ugly mug shows its face. And just a thanks to you for hosting, as always, Paula, Chris, and Fiona. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much for the invite. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, everybody. Well, for me, you can contact me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy because I'm the only Paula Carreirão you'll find. So I don't have David's problem. Of course, big thanks to our audience. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And if you're interested in our solution, you have any comments, questions about the products, just visit our website, asksuite.com, and follow us on LinkedIn. So thanks again, everybody. And I see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.